right. Aloha mai kako. Welcome to Moana Nui's podcast. I know I don't look like Moana, but today the episode is Kāne Voices, and we're going to talk about the Native Hawaiian Health Scholarship Program. My name is Lisa Leilani Ka'anoi, and I am the workforce lead at Papa'ololokahi's Workforce Development Department. Papa'ololokahi is a Native Hawaiian Health Board, and the department I work in is called Mauli Ola Malama Lama. So that's just a Hawaiian name we gave to our workforce development department. And mom is short for that. So, how fitting. But just to give a little background for those that are watching us for the first time. So Papa'ololokahi and Moana Nui partnered together to do this, to highlight some of the work that Papa'ololokahi is doing in different departments. And so one of ours, since we're the workforce development department, we decided that we would like to get more Kāne to talk about their work and their legacy, and also if they're in healthcare, and if they're not in healthcare, that's fine too. Just wanted to give them a space. We love and appreciate our Kāne, and give them some space to talk story and for people to get to know them. And so mahalo to those that are joining us live. I know it's Friday evening on the East Coast. To us, it's 1:00 here in Hawaii. So mahalo to those that are watching us live, and also to those who will be watching the recording later. So today I have Dr. Cory Lehano, who actually is an awardee of our scholarship program, and he's a pharmacist. So he's currently calling in from Maui, and I'm in Honolulu, Hawaii. So, Cory, how have you been, bruh?
Aloha, Lisa. Mahalo. I have been great.
You and I have talked a lot before, and this is completely by accident. Like, we coincidentally wore green today.
Oh,
So, matchy today.
I
But
know.
so tell us about, let's start from the beginning. So before you got into healthcare, what did you do before you even decided you wanted to get into healthcare?
Oh, that is a loaded question. Excellent question, though.
Or did you always know you wanted to be in healthcare?
No. So I can answer that with a affirmative no. Initially, I felt that I gravitated a lot towards arts, things that I could do with my hands. And it never really crossed my mind until, well within my undergraduate studies that healthcare would be an option for me. In high school, actually, I was contemplating joining the military because at the time, the incentive was the laptop. And so you sign up, you get the laptop, and I never have a laptop. And so that I was veering towards that. And I ended up actually, going the route of post-high school education. So no, I had really zero intention of healthcare or moving into the sector initially, if we're going back.
Right. And so were you always on Maui? Is that where you went to high school?
Nope. So I was actually born and raised on the island of Oahu, in what some say is the chosen place, Mililani. Go Trojans. But I graduated from Mililani High School and I attended school on the North Shore of Oahu. And it was there where I learned of my passion for really just helping others. And so that passion helped me gravitate towards the field of healthcare. So a lot of the experiences that I had there in Laie, a lot of the people that I met and the groups that I was privy to be involved in guided me towards, that idea of helping. And, I found happiness and really just genuine joy in helping other people. And so it lined up really perfectly with the field of healthcare. So that's kind of the entry points and the first steps into my journey of healthcare.
So were either of your parents in healthcare, or how did you?
No. So I'm a first generation healthcare worker. Both of my parents I would consider to be, very productive members of our community and society. My dad worked for UPS for 30 plus years. I still remember him coming home with the brown shirt, brown shorts, the thigh shorts, working hard. He ended up, working in all different types of departments. And my mom, she worked very hard to get to where she ended up retiring at with Oceanic Cable, Time Warner Cable, Spectrum. And so neither really had any experience or insight in the field of healthcare. And so, I had to learn as I go and learn along the way. And it was with a lot of help from mentors and Kumu that allowed me to ultimately make that choice, and dedicate my time and efforts to healthcare. So I will say that although I was not blessed to have parents in the healthcare field to guide me, they did provide me with a very strong sense of work ethic. And so I a lot of the things that I implement still to this day, I learned from them, to put my head down, go to work. Things don't always work out, but you work, put in the work, you'll reap what you sow, so that's kind of something that that has been a long lasting impact on my practice and, my philosophy of care.
So did you know right away that you wanted to become a pharmacist, or did you dabble in other areas?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I initially was leaning towards veterinary care, so animal care. And I was in one of the best places to experience not just the beauty of our islands, but also get my hands dirty, so to speak, and be involved in the care of animals. It was actually my scholastic mentor at the college that said, "Hey, there's a field. This is a field of pharmacy that suits that may suit your strengths." And so, you know, thankfully, there are people out there who are looking at us holistically and not just the Kolohe kid that, you know, you know, just goes class, whatever, go beach, go, all different kinds of stuff. And she said, with your grades and the way that you're performing, there's a few fields that you may actually do very well in. And one of those was pharmacy. And so I did a little bit of shadowing and I ended up preparing myself and took the pharmacy technician certification. So this was many moons ago. And so I became a pharmacy technician. And really the rest is history. So I think I got my certification in 2009, 2000, 2009, 2010, 2009, I think. And I have been in the field of pharmacy ever since. And so again, I think a lot of things, we have all of these defining moments in our lives. I think I can very vividly remember where I was sitting in that office and, the conversation that I had with my undergraduate counselor and I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to pursue it. And so she guided me and helped me and prepared me for my certification. And like I said, the rest is history.
So once you became a pharmacist, was it hard to well, and we'll take any questions from the audience as well too. So I guess for there's not very many Native Hawaiian pharmacists that we know of, right? And so I guess the question would be interesting to find out is how was it going to school? Was it easy? Did you have other peers that you could you know, lean on or, you know, what was it like?
Well, I guess it would be pertinent to go back a little bit and to just kind of discuss my experience entering and starting the process of even applying to pharmacy school. So I think a lot of people, specifically, Kanaka or people of Hawaii, the financial burden of higher education is extremely high. And when we talk about, and this is something I think we'll talk about a little bit later, but the concept of Kāne or male in this specific field, there's a lot to it. And so for me, making the decision to first and foremost go to college, undergraduate college, already there's a financial burden. And so that financial burden, I think, grows as you climb this proverbial education ladder. And so the decision to pursue pharmacy was not one that was taken lightly. And a lot of the, I think, reservations that I had was financial. It wasn't that I didn't believe that I couldn't hang with the, students on the continent or others, from Hawaii, but it's expensive. It's very hard. And so my decision, was heavily weighed on whether or not I could procure or find sources of financial help. And so, shameless plug, but not really, because now enters the Native Hawaiian Health Scholarship, and Papaololokahi. And
So how did you find out about us?
yeah, again, it's my counselor. It was my counselor. That was my concern. And there's a lot of courses, prerequisites that are required that need to be taken. And so in the process of taking these courses, that's a conversation that was had was, hey, okay, so if you're taking these courses, you should prepare to start applying for scholarships or financial aid. If you do prepare, or if you plan on progressing towards your next goal. And so I think, again, I can't thank her enough, but I think making sure that we increase accessibility and make sure that the the word is out, that there are venues for students who are interested in pursuing higher learning that can help relieve that financial portion. And so I do feel blessed. I feel lucky, that I was even exposed to the program. But
Does your counselor know where you are now?
no, I haven't spoken to her for a very, very long time. There are
Is she
also
still there?
I have professors. Yeah, I have professors that also, I did have a chance to check in on one. It's been a few years now, but it's nice. It's nice to see, and I think it's very beneficial for us as students, but I think it's so rewarding for them to see, like, the, oh man, they are, making an impact. And same like me, I had an old intern call me, and she said, I don't know if you remember me, but I was your intern 10 years ago. I was like, not even. And so time flies. And so and it's very rewarding. We do a lot and we sacrifice a lot to, try to progress the next generation of healthcare providers. And even just a simple call, that means so much. So yeah, I don't know if she's still there. I should check in on that. That's something I should definitely do. Thank you. I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, see?
Um,
Hopefully she's still there.
yeah, I'm not sure. I will have to check. But yeah, and so for me, I think the pro- process or the journey really was put on hold, right? So the and this goes for any healthcare field, is that there's an application process and a process that there's exams and competency tests that need to be performed and taken. And so that journey stopped, basically, for me, because I realized, I'm looking at all of these tuitions and the cost of all the different expenses to, go to school. And I'm like, I can't pay this. And so for me, it was, I think, my last reassuring point that, when the scholarship came in and, allowed me to apply and ultimately be selected. I think that was something that kind of pushed me to the top. Now I said, I have no excuse not to pursue, what I believe my my ultimate goal in education was. So that's where and the rest is history. It's-
Was there like any sort of concern that if you didn't get the scholarship, was there a backup plan?
That's a great question. So let me back up a little bit, because there was a hiccup, and I'm sure Auntie Nani shared that hiccup. So, and this is another one of those moments, those. And I wouldn't call myself a hero, but in the hero story, there's these like specific moments, and So this moment occurred when I was in Colorado. So I went and got my doctorate of pharmacy in Denver, Colorado. And so in Colorado, it was maybe 1 or 2 weeks into so the tuition wasn't due yet, right? Tuition wasn't due. It was like 1 week or 1.5 weeks in orientation, and I get a call from Papaola, Keolana.
Yep.
And he called and he said, okay, are you sitting down? Like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Like, I just unpacked my truck and I got, and I was moving in, and he said, oh, some logistic issues that took place. And so something happened. I still to this day, I'm not too sure what happened, but turns out that I had to wait until my second year to be awarded the scholarship. And so that first year, so I went into panic mode and I came home. So I came home for the weekend. I was asking everybody, I was like, okay, I need to get a loan just to cover me until the logistics of the scholarship, were straightened out. And nobody could sign the loan with me. I never have credit. So I was like, okay, I'm enrolled. I moved all my stuff to Colorado. And I was in this parking lot, and I remember I was in front of this dental clinic, and I was just parked, and he was telling me all of these things that were happening. He's like, "Don't worry about it. This is something that we'll take care of and figure out." I was like, "Oh my gosh, I just moved my entire life onto the continent to pursue school, and now I gotta find a way to pay for this first semester." And so I came back, and was asking. I asked it everywhere. I asked my family. And nobody could help me with this loan for this amount of money in this short period of time. And that was devastating. And it was life-changing, really. And so for me, this hero moment came in the form of Grandma Linda Iwohi. And I'm not blood to her. But Grandma Linda, she sat me down and she said, I believe in you. I believe in what you're gonna do. She never said I believe in what you're doing, because you know, it's hard to, it's a hard pitch to make. I need this amount of money, and I need it by the 15th of August or whatever. But I remember the conversation I had with her, and she said, I believe what you're going to do. She never said I believe what you're doing in what you're doing. I believe in what you're gonna do. You know, my own family, my parents were unable to help me financially. Nobody except Grandma Linda believed that, believed in what I could do. And so she ended up co-signing the loan, got all the financials taken care of. And, I attribute a lot of my journey because, that could have went one of two ways. And it was really a defining point in my journey that not only now I have no excuse to perform and do well because that financial burden is lifted. But now I have the kuleana or responsibility, the reciprocal responsibility to come back and make sure that I give everything in every sinew of my body to make right and to return back and care for those who ultimately cared for me. And the class is tough. A doctoral program is no joke, and it was that experience and the conversations and that I had, that I always return back to on the tough time and be like, what, I have a duty. And so it's not easy. It definitely is. It's not for the faint of heart. But I think those who have the capacity and ability to you know, internalize and galvanize and use experiences like that to galvanize their resolve are the most potent and effective healthcare providers. And so for me, again, I can only look back and just be grateful. Grandma Linda is not with us. She's has since passed. But I mean, I sometimes I actually oftentimes revisit and think about what happened if that never happened. What happened if my counselor never told me, go go the route of pharmacy? Or what happened if I never meet Auntie Nani and 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 Papa Ola and be given the opportunity to have that financial burden relieved? Where would I be? What would I be doing? And so that is why, Lisa, whenever Papa Ola call or whenever they need something, I do everything in my power to assist, because I firsthand I can say with every part of my heart that the mission and vision is absolutely being executed with this program. And there are so many, and I'm one of many, and there's so many people who have benefited, not just firsthand, not just our scholars and our alum, but those people that the scholars touch. I mean, that number is, you know, incalculable. It can't really be counted. And so that's why I'm on this podcast. That's why I'm put myself in an uncomfortable position and talk story with you, because yes, I believe in the program and I believe in what it has and will continue to provide.
I really appreciate that story, and that's a good segue for me to let people know that this scholarship program has been around. Our first cohort was in 1991, 1992. So I think this scholarship program is about 34 years old now. And we have given out about, as of last year, this 24 cohort, we've given out 341 awards. So we average about 10 awards per year. And it's the same every year. It opens February 1st, closes March 15th. And the goal, basically, our goal in this workforce development department at Papa'olakahi is basically simply to get more Native Hawaiians interested in healthcare. I mean, we know there's a healthcare crisis going on, in that, as well as I know, that most people in healthcare are female, right?
Mhm.
And so one of our advisory council members had asked us, she was part of the application process. And for those that know her, it's Humu Malina Kuulukukui. She asked, why are there not very many males applying for the scholarship program? And so we decided to do some work around that, and we have a couple of projects. And this is one of them, having a podcast called Kāne Voices, right? Trying to reach those that aren't even considering healthcare, right? It doesn't even matter, because we've had someone Conan, right, who was at the last episode, Conan Wykes, who had been in the restaurant industry for 20 years. And during the pandemic, when the restaurants were closing, they were shuttering, he decided he wanted to go back to school. And now he's pursuing what he wants to do. And he's, going towards the psychology route. So for those that watched the last one or two episodes, that's why Conan is not here in the interview process, right? Or not interviewing Cory right now. So just an FYI. So can we talk a little bit more about that, Cory? Like, what are you doing to get more males interested getting into healthcare? Or, what would you what kind of advice would you give to someone, or encourage someone to consider it?
Mhm. So that's a very layered question.
Right.
And I think it's one that always should be discussed, because it's not just within our Native Hawaiian community. It's pretty widespread and acknowledged. So I actually I was invited to attend like an advisory meeting with Maui High School here, and specifically for their health track or their health academy. And that was one question that was immediately brought up. They have, hundreds of students, and they have, I think, 2 male in this health academy. And so already, if you think about that, it needs to be addressed even earlier. And so at what point are we, concerned, or there has to be a tipping point, right? To where action needs to be taken. And for the most part, I believe, and it's hard for me because my team members, wahine, wahine, and so it's really hard, and it's hard. It's a question that I think has to be looked through the lens of our traditional society and what the role of Kane really was. And it's hard to, 100% plug and play and, imply that everything in those days, hundreds of years ago, is the same as it is today, which is not. And so, but the roles as a as caretakers and as protectors and providers, I think the role, whether we as Kane acknowledge it or it's subconscious, I think that role is still in us. And so, coming out of high school, we live in a very urbanized post-colonial mindset. We have to provide, and for us, the value, we put value to money and wealth. And so the question for somebody who is looking to provide or to protect is, how do I increase my value to provide? And so it's not healthcare right now, because healthcare requires an investment, right? You need to invest your time and energy with the hopes of a return later. But a lot of the Kane, I believe, and I can't speak for everybody, but I
Right.
believe they're looking to provide. They're looking to increase their wealth or their value via, this Western wealth. And so how can I generate value now? And so that's where we see a lot of our Kane population going into sectors or fields that can provide value now. And it's hard to persuade, especially in our economy and in our times, to be like, okay, yes, you can increase your value right now, but you can exponentially increase that value if you're willing to sacrifice and put aside, a lot of the comforts and needs and wants that you have to pursue a career that ultimately will be able to touch a lot of people, which is healthcare. So it's having those conversations. Not already now, with Maui High, I realize maybe not even high school, maybe the conversation has to be taken, a little bit earlier. The second thing that I noticed, and I do have people to speak with, other Kane in the field, and I it's a strong. I think there should be a strong push for identity, understanding who we are. For me, it came in the form of having meaningful conversations with my ohana, having to be put in a place where I was dependent on them, and understanding that my role and my responsibility now is to return back and to care for them. So cultural identity should be at the forefront of our, I guess, for lack of a better word, recruitment process, helping the younger generation understand culturally who they are and how they became. I think if that is discussed and mentioned and learned, then everything just kind of falls into place. Like, I understand, like, all the sacrifices that my kupuna made and my ohana made for me just to be here and present and taking breaths. That is the most potent thing that I think we can instill in this next generation of healers, of healthcare providers. So, and I wish I don't have that much regrets. I for one regret that I have is I wish I gave a little more time and energy to understanding who I was and who I am. That's one thing that I share with a lot of the interns that come through, is that when you choose healthcare, whether you want to or not, as Kanaka, you put aside because it's all just memory dump when you're in school. And so we got to put aside a lot of our cultural learning, we sacrifice our capacity to improve ourselves culturally, to make sure that we can operate proficiently in the Western world. And so, we're receiving all of this secular information and knowledge and overload of of learning, but there's this portion of us, all of us, right? And we're we're stuck because we're like, man, I gotta study. I get tests every week, every week, every week, but I want to connect. And so what the scholarship program allows us to do is connect, and it allows us to practice, even if it's a small thing, even if it's become work. I know, right?
Yep.
Bringing the students to Malama Aina, and that small thing, that's what the scholarship allows us to do. It helps us not get lost in the climb, right? So we all climbing, we all grabbing and trying to get to where we need to get. But man, I think that even that small piece of the program, that instilling, like, we're here for you, we're accessible, that really is something that is special. And so I had to sacrifice. I sit in a lot of spaces, and a lot of times I have regret, because I'm like, man, if I allocated the time and energy to my culture, and knowing, what what I could know in the time that I invested in Western knowledge, where would I be? But now, fortunately, I'm in a space where I can connect, and I can focus on that portion of me, and so and for that I'm grateful. So
No, thank you for that.
talking
That's
too much. I'm sorry, Lisa. I'm talking too much.
no, no,
Just
no, you're fine. It's
yeah.
no, I think we need to hear that. It has to be said, because the way I look at it, we are in direct competition with every other profession out there, whether it's the trades, whether it's white collar, blue collar, firefighter, restaurant industry. We are in direct competition with every other profession out there. Right. And so, how do we navigate that? And how do we can't, it has to be, someone has to value it. Right. So we can't like pursue someone who just already has made up their mind, right? And they're just going to go
Mhm.
into something else. And that's completely fine. That's understandable. From our perspective, when we go out and talk about the scholarship, regardless of what you decide to do, because you may not decide right now, it may be too overwhelming, but whatever you do, all of us scholarship providers want you to succeed in whatever you do, right?
Mhm.
And so it's just kind of having, to me, it's like, if they don't consider, never considered going into healthcare, we're not asking them to sign up for the scholarship. But hey, have you ever even thought about going into healthcare? And then the discussion starts there, right?
Mhm. I think so. With so we're still in the process of recovering from the wildfires, but one thing that and I continue to learn, but one thing that I've learned is that there's a difference between treating someone and healing someone, right? I mentioned that I go on my soapbox because
Yep.
it is so important to understand the difference.
Mhm.
And so healing requires healers, right? And there are people who have innate personality, and whether it was their upbringing or whether it is just, God given, they have the demeanor, the humility, the desire to heal. And so identifying those, and they can be cakey, they can be little kids, but it's the ones that who go, are you okay? Are you, so those are our healers. Those are our future healers. And so that question is, how or what are we doing to go out of our way to identify these healers and to support them in their journey, whether they're healing, in the Western mindset, or they're healing as practitioners here on the island, So for us, or for me specifically, I think I still need to continue to learn about healing, because a lot of the things that we do in healthcare, we're treating, we're band-aiding, and we're putting the band-aid and say, see you in a month, and whereas those who continue to rebuild and move past their trauma here, they are craving to be healed, and they want to be healed. And it's only the people who have that, it's like an aura. It's like they're the ones who can reach and work and move towards being healed. And it's those people that I think, and they don't have a lot of letters after their name. They don't have credentials, but they have the capacity to pierce a heart and to get to the root and to understand that, okay, this is what needs to be done in order for you to experience that process of healing. And so, I mean, yes, finding those people who are healers and they don't know it. They don't know that they are, or they gravitate towards, being a healer. But back, back in the days when in our traditional society, they were identified and they were taken aside and they learned separately, and so and that was as early as 3, 4, 5 years old. So that's something that we can look forward to in supporting these healers as they grow. And I think the scholarship is an excellent launch pad or touch point to do that, because you guys at Papaola are doing that and are identifying that through this process of applications and whatnot. So
Yeah, we do. I mean, it's not a secret. The financial burden of going to med school is probably a big barrier for people choosing not to go into med school or to other professions because of the cost, right? We would love to give everybody a scholarship, that applies, but of course, we only get so much funding, but I really appreciate your time, and I know what we've tapped into you more than once for these types of talks and presentations, and we really appreciate you giving back to us.
Mhm.
Probably won't be the last time either. So we'll make sure to
We
send you a
love it.
Christmas. We'll make sure to send you a Christmas card.
No, we Christmas card, perfect. That's all we ask. We love
But,
it.
for those I'll just kind of talk a little bit more about the scholarship since it is opening on February 1st. So there are specific professions that are eligible for the scholarship. And the reason why there are these professions is because they are mandated by the Native Hawaiian Healthcare Improvement Act. And what we discovered was that we needed primary care positions out in the rural areas, right? So this is why this is the priority for us in the rural communities that don't have clinics or hospitals. We need to have more primary care providers in the rural areas. So the professions are a clinical psychologist, dentist, dental hygienist, a doctor, a medical doctor, DO, nutritionist, nurses, physician assistant, and social worker. So if that rings a bell with anybody, please take a look at our landing page at Papaola Lokahi. And we actually will have a couple of virtual informational sessions coming up to answer more in detail questions that folks may have regarding the application process. And those are going to be on February 5th and February 22nd. So one is going to be on a weekday and one is going to be on a weekend, and it'll be virtual and we will not record it. So just want to put that out there that if you register, you can register for one or both, but after they're gone, there won't be any recording on our website. So yeah, and it's it's a great, what we call a Cadillac of scholarships, because it funds the entire duration of your attendance in a program. So let's say if you are a doctor, we would fund the entire 4 years of you going to med school, given that you would be in good standing every semester when we get your grades. And there is also a stipend. So we really want to relieve the financial burden for folks who are truly, truly, truly want to give back to the rural Native Hawaiian communities and to Kanaka and to our Lahui. Relieve that financial burden so you can focus all your energies on school and getting to where you need to go, because we really need, the nation is going through a healthcare shortage. So we feel it even more here in the islands. And so yeah, I don't know what else to say more about the program. Cory, if you want to add anything to it.
I think for us, it's important, us meaning the alumni of the program, that all of the prospective applicants understand that we are accessible and that we're available. And so if you have any questions or, anything, we're, for the most part, I feel like I speak for the majority of the scholars that we're here and we are ready to help you and assist you in whatever capacity. Because we do need help, we have a lot of need. And like you said, Lisa, in the rural health areas or rural areas of our islands, we need help. So mahalo.
Yep. And we try to keep in touch with all of our scholars, and some of them are thriving and in leadership positions in different areas. And, we can say, hey, if you ever met a Native Hawaiian nurse, we know someone. If have never met a Native Hawaiian doctor, we know someone. If you've never met a Native Hawaiian dentist, we know someone. So that's just our goal. We would love to see more Kanaka in healthcare fields. So if you want to find out more about our informational sessions, you can always email us at NHHSP, Native Hawaiian Healthcare Scholarship Program, at papaolalokahi.org. There's also, I believe we've already put out some announcements on our social media, which is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or X, or whatever you call it. So yeah. Appreciate you, Cory. I appreciate Moana and Dana and all the behind the scenes tech on Moana Nui podcast. We will have another interview next month. I can't exactly remember the date, in February. We will be talking to another Kāne, a male Hawaiian who's actually going to school, currently in education. So you can get to hear what it's like for him. He is a physician assistant going to school as a PA, and he's actually born and raised on the continent. So we have to, now that we know that there are more Native Hawaiians outside of Hawaii, we cannot ignore the fact that we have to also reach out to the Kanaka on the continent to apply for this scholarship. So you do not have to be a resident here. You don't have to be raised here. As long as you can demonstrate that you are Native Hawaiian, you're eligible to apply. And so, next time we're going to talk to Aaron Sipple. You'll get to hear firsthand from him what it's like. He's just new to this scholarship program. I think he's a 24 cohort going to school now. So that'll be an interesting conversation with him as well. But yes, love you guys.
Mahalo.
Take care. We'll see you. Keep in touch. Take care. Mahalo, Cory.
Rio.
Okay, ahui ho.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will.
If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then. When they annexed Hawaii and called it Cedar Lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves a republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the Native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language was banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand,
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe. As a part of their ongoing war with Asia, used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No work out for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.
So if you put Hawaii into perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course. Cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe. As a part of their ongoing war with Asia, used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. Network out for all the locals. School never let you know. So many stories left to tell. Even if we have to ourselves, can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell. Even if we have to ourselves, can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell. Even if we have to ourselves, can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell. Even if we have to ourselves, can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.